the very good. This is the Wisconsin Assembly Map Drawing Contest Award Ceremony. It is sponsored by Western Wisconsin for Nonpartisan Voting Districts, or WWNVD. You'll hear me refer to that quite a bit. The other acronym you'll hear from me tonight is PMC, for the People's Maps Commission. I'm Bob Mcclellan. I'm from Hudson, Wisconsin. I'll be your MC tonight. I'm a retired manufacturing manager. I am an elementary school substitute teacher. And most importantly for this, I am a volunteer with WWNVD. The contest team was made up of our lead organizer, Don Leak. He's from River Falls. The head of the WWNVD, Janelle Ludwig Kraus, she's from Baldwin. And not with us tonight is Dan Paulson. He was our web designer from Menominee. WWNVD aims to end partisan gerrymandering in Wisconsin by educating and motivating residents of Western Wisconsin and beyond to make their voices heard in the legislature. We're not affiliated with the Wisconsin People's Maps Commission, but we very much support their objectives. This contest is intended to provide maps, tangible maps, to the PMC to give concrete examples of maps that are far, far better than the maps drawn by the 2011 legislature. In addition to those actual maps, the contest is among many things that we're doing to raise awareness of political gerrymandering. WWNVD has fostered sending over 500 postcards to legislators. Working with our local communities at events, within an hour's drive of my home in Hudson, we've drawn over 100 community maps. And many letters to the editors have been sent from WWNVD members. Today's activity is extremely timely. To our knowledge, the US Census Bureau will be sending the remaining data necessary for districting out to the state on August 15th, less than 2 weeks from today. At that time, the legislatures are able to start creating maps for their new districts. I'd also say on a higher level, again, this is a very timely activity we're all doing, everyone on this phone call tonight, because everyone involved in WWNVD has various political needs and interests, and they advocate for various things. But if you care about electoral reform at all, the place to be in the year following a census is working toward a process to get a fair, open, reproducible, nonpartisan method of drawing districts. And that's what we're working toward. In Wisconsin, Senate Bill 389 and Assembly Bill 395 would deliver exactly that legislation. So in addition to providing maps, we're trying to raise awareness and get people to call their legislators. We have some guests with us tonight. I'd like to recognize some supporters and special guests. Our prize sponsors are the Tompkins sisters and the Don H. and Ann F. Leak Foundation, which is not a real thing, but Don told me it sounded much classier if I said it that way. We have our winners. You'll see them on your screens. They'll be introduced, and those winners will be announced shortly. We have 2 members of the People's Map Commission with us tonight. In the audience, Anne Marie Mcclellan is a commissioner representing Wisconsin's 3rd Congressional District. She's co-president of the League of Women Voters of the Greater Chippewa Valley. I've had the great pleasure of working with Anne Marie at several events. It's been a pleasure, and I really appreciate her efforts. Christopher Ford is the chair of the People's Map Commission from Wisconsin's 4th Congressional District. He's a physician and a leader in emergency medical care. We've invited Chairman Ford to share a few thoughts on the PMC and their efforts tonight with us. And Chris, if you're ready, I'll turn it over to you now for those thoughts.
Absolutely, Bob. Can everybody hear me? Perfect. Okay, I have bath time going in the background, so I put in the earbuds so to drown it out. So, so thanks for everybody for inviting me out tonight, and thanks for participation in programs like this. Throughout our entire process, the PMC has held a goal of transparency and attempted to be responsive to all those reflections that have been provided to us by the people throughout the state of Wisconsin. We've heard from thousands of Wisconsinites throughout programs such as your own, as well as submissions throughout our portal. And maps that are created through this program and created through programs like this will be paramount in expressing your voices in terms of where you want those communities of interest to be, where your communities are, where you see your municipalities, where you want them split or not. As we continue on, we're going to continue to need that testimony, and we are very appreciative of everyone who submitted. I would say over the last weekend, we've gotten over 100 submissions, and I think that a lot of it has come from WWNVD, to be honest with you. And so we are very appreciative of that. So we ask those that are watching here today and those that have already have yet to do so, feel free to continue to submit those maps even long after we've gotten that census data. Continue to submit your testimonies to us and continue to submit those communities of interest. We have recently, over the last days, received communities of interest from the entirety of the state of Wisconsin, which is paramount. So together, I know that once we do this and once we go through all of our criterion and applying that data directly, I know that we're going to achieve our goal of fair representative maps that the folks of Wisconsin are telling us that we want and that the folks of Wisconsin deserve. And so with that being said, I would ask those who have not yet gone, feel free to go to our new and improved portal. It's https://portal.wisconsin-mapping.org. You can get there directly through our website as well, which is govstatus.egov.com/peoplesmaps. And so with that being said, guys, I appreciate it. And thank you so much. And congratulations to all the winners here tonight.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Just so you know, I believe I can already see her doing it. I bet Janelle is getting those links and she'll put them in the chats. That is her normal practice, and so she'll pass those on.
Thanks so much, Janelle. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. You and Anne-Marie have given so much time already. I've watched several of the public comment activities you've done. It's a huge investment of time. Thank you again for being with us tonight. Now I'd like to introduce the lead organizer of the contest, Don Leek, to describe a bit about the contest and to announce our winners. And Don, I will share my screen and I will run those slides for you.
Okay, I'll begin when I see the first slide. We're just going to have a couple of slides about the map contest before I announce the winners.
And pardon me, Don, Janelle, I'm getting a note, host disabled participant screen sharing. So I think that is going to prevent me from doing so. So I am actually backing up Janelle on that. We judged that my internet connection was more reliable than hers, but Janelle, I am not able to share that.
I've switched it over to you, so can you do it now?
Perfect. Let me see. Who can share? Only host. All right. Let's see. There we go. Thank you.
Yeah, can you make it a little bit larger?
Yes.
Bob, I can see it.
Hide that control panel. I've got to present. How's that?
That's pretty good. Can everybody else see that? Yes. Most of us are on mute. Off on May 1st and ended on July 31st. You had 3 months to draw 99 Wisconsin Assembly districts in a map. All three of our contestants submitted their maps in May. First place was a flat $500 plus $1 for every district map. We had to diminish the prize for second and third place. And again, this is all sponsored by Western Wisconsin for nonpartisan voting districts. I could have slide 2 now, Bob. We're going to talk about the People's Maps Commission criteria and compare them to the map contest criteria. The motivation for this contest was entirely in support of the People's Maps Commission, which continues to solicit, among other things, maps from the general populace. We wanted to encourage public participation, increase awareness of the PMC mission, and tap into the expertise of map drawers throughout the nation. We tried to model the contest judging after the map criteria that the PMC adopted at the end of March, fitting it to metrics supplied by the free web-based redistricting app, DRA 2020. Not being expert map judges, we decided that the maps would be evaluated purely on the scores they received in the 5 general analytic categories for which DRA provides metrics. Here is the slide summarizing the PMC categories prioritized in groups and the weighting scheme we used for the DRA category scores. Maximizing compactness and minimizing city, village, and county splitting are high priorities for the PMC. Communities of interest could not be included in the contest judging because the results of the COI effort have just been completed and DRA has no metrics for this yet. Ideally, the PMC would like the districts to be within 0.5% of the average district population. Our contest required the populations be equalized within 5% of average. This is a standard requirement. Also, this lesser precision allowed the maps to be drawn at the precinct or ward level, not any lower. Partisan fairness, or as it's known in DRA, proportionality, is measured by metrics like the efficiency gap, partisan bias, mean minus median. The PMC agreed that all other things being equal, maps with higher partisan fairness scores would be preferred. The PMC hopes that the competitiveness in district races will be a natural consequence of meeting the other group criteria and is not directly considering it. In recognition of this, we gave DRA's competitiveness score the lowest weight, 10%. I can make a couple of comments about the contest criteria. Those first 2 on the DRA column, counting, splitting, and compactness, that's 50% of the weighted score. Those are just related to how the map is constructed. Minority opportunity depends on demographic information. And the last 2, proportionality and competitiveness, depend on political information that's supplied to the maps. We anticipated getting scores of maps. We only got 3, but we're very happy with all 3 of them. As we make the awards, I will explain why. Okay, Bob, first award. Third place goes to Aaron Moriak's map. Even though Aaron's map finished in 3rd place, it scored the highest in 3 of the 5 categories. I would like to highlight proportionality, partisan fairness. That's the next slide, Bob. You can see from the radiographs that Aaron's map easily outscores the current assembly map. That's on the right. Political data used in these maps is a composite of recent statewide elections, the 2016, 2020 presidential elections, the 2016, 2018 Senate races, the 2018 governor's race, and 2018 Attorney General's contest. Aaron is a 2020 graduate of Marquette University. You will get to know more about him and his interest in districting maps in the Q&A session that follows at 7:30. I thank him for being the first to enter the contest, helping us get some of the bugs out of our system, and also for introducing me to the acronym DFTBA. Don't forget to be awesome. Congratulations, Aaron. Next slide. Second place goes to Emma Jaworski. She got the best score in compactness. DRA bases its compactness score on 3 metrics, 2 of which are mentioned in the PMC criteria. Both measure the relative circularity of a district. As you can see, Emma's map is greatly superior to the current assembly map in proportionality and county splitting, as well as compactness. So compactness 65 versus our current map, which is rated 46. Congratulations. Oh, Emma is a student at UW River Falls, where I happen to teach math for 33 years. Again, you will get to hear from her in the Q&A. Congratulations, Emma. And finally, last but not least, Theodore Warner. Best score in county splitting, but also a quality map overall. Only 40 of 72 counties were split in his map. That's very low. It's easy to see in the radial graph the superiority of Theodore's map to the current assembly map. 4 out of the 5 categories, so only one just a little bit under minority opportunity. Theodore is a 2021 graduate of Carnegie Mellon and learned of the contest from Dr. Jonathan Service. I was checking the attendee list. I'm not sure he's there tonight. We want to thank him anyway for helping publicize the contest. I'm looking forward to hearing from Theodore and have him talk about his map in the Q&A. Congratulations, Theodore. Now, my wife Ann would say 67. That's Theodore's overall score. That's a D, but I want to assure you that's an excellent score for Wisconsin assembly maps. This slide here will put that score in context. I know this is a lot of numbers here, but I'm just gonna point to a few things in this table as your eyes get adjusted to the numerals. The last column is the weighted score that we used. And you can see Theodore's map was less than 1 point from the top. These maps here that I put the contestants in context with are published maps on DRA 2020 that meet the criteria of our contest. And I put the scores of every single category and their weighted score at the right, so you can see our contestants in context with what's out there in the public. The second point I'd like to make is things that we discovered in the competitiveness column. You can see the scores don't vary too much. I think the lowest is 26, the highest is 33. This indicates to me that it's pretty hard for our contestants and anybody else that does an assembly map of Wisconsin to improve on that score. Things would have to drastically change in the other categories to make those numbers go up. The final thing that I would point out is I had conjectured that the splitting score might be correlated to proportionality, that if we minimize splitting, we might get better proportional representation. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Are fairly uncorrelated, as is splitting and compactness, another surprise to me. Again, congratulations, contestants. I'm looking forward to the Q&A. Over to you, Bob.
Thank you, Don. We've come to the end of the presentation portion of our program. Before we hear more from our winners and in the question and answer portion, I'd like to again thank our guests from the PMC for sharing their time, our prize sponsors, everyone at WWNVD who's working to end gerrymandering, and our guests. If you've called in tonight, thank you for doing so. I appreciate you giving up your time. Remember, we need fair maps in 2021. It will be in 2021 maps. I personally believe it is going to be a chaos that will turn it into a smooth and trustworthy process. That legislation is Wisconsin Senate Bill 389 and Assembly Bill 395. We need those to get out of committee and passed. Don't forget to call your legislators. Call them tonight, email them, call them tomorrow. To all the map makers, if you do choose to update your maps when the new census data comes out, please don't forget to submit your results to the PMC. Audience members, if you have questions, please type them into the Q&A box that's in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. If you have trouble with that, you can use the chat window, but type your questions into the Q&A box. We'll pass them on to the contestants or to whoever's appropriate. And while we're doing that, while people are getting that, I'm going to ask a question to get us started. Teddy, if I may, people your age are not always deep into politics and a lifetime to this map. Do you have any particular memory from when you were younger about politics or government that kind of spurred you in this direction?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I have any specific memories, but I have always been into politics. Like I remember in the 2012 election, I was running the simulations on the 270 to win website to see for myself how likely Obama or Mitt Romney would be to win. And just since then, 2016, I was a few months too young to vote, unfortunately. But since then, I've been getting people around me to vote in every election, including midterms, off-year municipal elections. And with redistricting, I did take a class my final semester on redistricting, and from what I learned in that, I've chosen to spend time drawing new maps for contested states such as Wisconsin, and hopefully decrease the amount of controls that state legislatures have on choosing their own voters rather than the other way around.
So Teddy, you just mentioned you didn't really have a particular thing, but if my quick back of the envelope calculations, were you 14 years old when you were calculating the likely outcome of that election?
I was 13.
Outstanding. We'll come back to you, but I want to move to Emma Jaworski. Emma, this is if you haven't thought in this direction, please take it in any direction you'd want. But election laws are constrained, as they should be, by existing state and federal constitutions. If you're working toward a long-term future, when you and Teddy and Aaron are my age, are there any electoral changes you would like, even if they took, just mass efforts to change constitutions through amendments? Is there anything in particular that you'd like to see different in our elections?
Like for the process of voting or for like the electoral college?
However you want to answer that.
Okay, because like this may be an unpopular opinion, I don't know, but I am completely against electoral college because like the person who won the popular vote, which is the majority of the country, didn't even win, in the last election in 2016. Perfect answer, but I think it should really be, the majority of the country wanted, someone president. It shouldn't just be, did they get the states with the most weight? Because I actually made a map about the power of a single vote in every state, where I divided the total voting population by the number of electoral votes, or the other way around, and it came up with the number. So I want to say it was Wyoming, it was 2 or 3 times the voting power as California or something. So it's I don't know, I just don't think that's fair. I think one vote should be one vote regardless of where you live. So
very good, thank you. Emma, you and I share that desire.
Okay.
I'm going to ask Aaron a question. When you were drawing your map, you've got to make compromises, and that's all there is to it. We all know that. Was there any particular compromise that was just painful for you to make, or on the other hand, did it seem like you felt like you knew going in that there were going to be painful choices, and it just didn't feel unusual.
Yeah, I think Wisconsin is one of those states where you do have to make lots of compromises, especially when it comes to the proportionality and making fair maps, especially because when it comes to the partisanship and the political geography of the state, the rural parts of Wisconsin, especially northwest Wisconsin, have a lot more residual Democratic voters that you really can't draw into districts that Democrats are going to the southeast. You can for Republicans, so it makes it really hard. You almost have to gerrymander the Madison and Milwaukee area for Democrats to make up for the fact that there are so many wasted votes for Democrats in the Northwest that it's just not possible without completely ignoring splitting and compactness and things like that to draw enough Democratic districts in the Northwest.
Aaron, you and I, again, we share the same frustration. I've witnessed the exact thing you're describing. We do have a question that's come in, and Janelle, I see that you're going to take that.
I'll read it, and maybe someone else can answer it. Minority opportunity is required under the Voting Rights Act. I believe this is from Benjamin Warner. Is there a minimum score for minority opportunity that is needed for a proposed map to be legal under the VRA? Do you know that, Don, maybe?
Yeah, I'm not sure that your connection is solid there, Janelle.
It's not. Maybe I misinterpreted. I see a message here that Janelle Kraus would like to answer this question live. I'm not sure if that really is your intent.
No.
So
well, I can take a stab at it, Bob, if you want me to.
I do. I'm going to reread the question just in case anyone couldn't hear that. So from Ben Warner, minority opportunity is required under the Voting Rights Act. I believe, is there a minimum score for minority opportunity that is needed for a proposed map to be legal under the VRA? Take it away, Don.
Well, the short answer is meeting legalities of the Voting Rights Act is a very difficult question. So let me begin by saying, first of all, that the PMC, you didn't notice anything about minority opportunity or in their criteria. That's because earlier on it was just given that the map would satisfy the 1965 Voters' Rights Act. Now, when you go to DRA 2020 and they do have that category of minority opportunity, right away they say this is no guarantee of anything concerning the VRA, the Voting Rights Act. They do an analysis of how many districts have minority representation. It starts at 35% and goes on up to 100% in representation. And you can fool around with the numbers there a little bit to get some correlation with the DRA score and the number of minority districts of 35% or more. But there's no guarantee. The short answer is no, it's very difficult. There's no score that would guarantee VRA. The best advice that I've heard so far is that if districts have undergone a court case previously, map makers are hesitant to change those districts at all because they don't want to have another court case come up. So once it's settled, you sort of have those districts in concrete.
Very good. Thank you, Don. We have a question from Anne Marie in the chat for all three winners. First, she says, congratulations. She passes that on. Theodore, for you first, what was the biggest challenge you encountered while creating your winning map?
So with my map, I made sure to keep counties as intact as I could. So some of the some of the difficulty came from keeping, for example, Milwaukee County intact while keeping it proportional. So preventing it from being too packed with Democratic voters, but also not going across to a red county next to it. Those precincts are very wide and go into the Great Lake, and that does make compactness more difficult.
I get that joke. I don't. So for those of you that have seen the maps, the districts actually go off into Lake Michigan. So I like that. I know if you haven't seen the maps, that may not make sense. But, thank you, Teddy. Emma, same question to you. Anything in particular that was the biggest challenge for you in creating your map?
Yeah, the biggest challenge for me was actually I actually had to make my map twice because I got to the end of my first one and I was looking at just the number like itself. So I was like, within a couple hundred for the population as far as getting it down to 0, but I wasn't keeping track of, was I 100 under, 100 over? So I got to the last county and I was like a good 20,000 people short. And I was like, well, shoot. So I figured it would just be easier to redo it than to try and like take off of each, district and then redo it. I was like, it's just gonna be easier to start this over. Like, and there were some things I would have changed anyways. So then I remade it. And as I was going, I was like writing down, okay, this much over, this much under, and then was calculating as I went to keep it as close to 0 or like equal on both. So then I ended up with like the last county being like 300 over or something. So
Emma, your description is almost word from word something Don was telling me this morning. Same kind of thing. He forgot to keep track of which way the skew was and ended up with a similar problem. Thank you. Aaron, same question for you. What was the biggest challenge you encountered while creating your winning map?
There are definitely a number of challenges for making Wisconsin map, but kind of going off of that VRA discussion, I think how the districts are currently drawn, the VRA is interpreted for the current districts, and the level of racial segregation in Milwaukee kind of makes it difficult to use Milwaukee to draw fair districts in the metro area, as well as compact districts and preserving communities of interest, because you always have to keep in mind the level, making sure you have majority minority districts. So I know that there was a number of times where I would draw the districts and be like, oh, this is great. It has, allows for a little bit more fair, a little bit more competitive districts in the area. But then looking at the racial composition, and then I also was kind of focusing on the Senate districts as well, just to make sure that since our Senate districts and our Assembly districts are trying to make sure that there was the right number of Senate districts with also majority minimum vote, and it kind of constrained how much you could really make competitive, fair, and compact districts in and around the Milwaukee area.
I have struggled with that exact issue. I can't say it any better than you. That is an issue which in some ways I call residential gerrymandering, not just political gerrymandering, and it flows into political gerrymandering. We have a question from Ben Warner for each of the winners. Do you have interest or plans in entering electoral politics, either running for office or campaign work, or interest in other government service? And I'll open it up. I had always intended to give you just some free time. Tell us a little bit about any future plans you might, or governmental plans and other plans, even completely in a different direction. We'll start with Teddy.
Yeah, I'd potentially be interested in the future. I am starting a PhD program soon, so potentially after that, but it just depends what the environment's like. Would my future career interest eventually end up being, but I would be open to it.
Eddie, I expect your PhD is in something critically important to electoral politics. I only say that because Don already told me.
Yeah, you'd be wrong.
Yeah, it's in chemistry.
That's right. As a retired chemical engineer myself, stick with that. Keep it up, but don't get into politics anyway in your free time. Emma, your thoughts for potential future in electoral politics or in future otherwise?
Yeah, I don't foresee myself having a future in politics just because they frustrate me too much. But just because there's so much arguing and disagreement, and I'm not a very confrontational. I would love to do so. I'm majoring actually in like GIS and geography, so I would like to do something with like either like crime analytics, like of like mapping like different like crime dispersals throughout like cities and stuff, or like tracking diseases, like COVID and stuff through maps. Like I think that would be fascinating. But as far as job availability, I'm not sure. It's just gonna be what's available when I graduate. But I'm also looking into maybe going abroad to get my master's because I cannot afford to do it here. So like I know there are some programs that are taught in English in Europe, and it's like some of them don't even have a tuition cost, so I would just have to pay for housing. Some of them are like $2,000 a year, and I did the math for here, and it would be like $100,000. So I might go abroad. I don't know. I'm still looking into it, but
you've got a plan.
yeah. So,
and I assume your pocketbook will thank you for keeping track of those costs. Good job.
Thank you.
Aaron, same for you. Any plans for career in the future in electoral politics, or behind the scenes, or anything you'd like to say about your future career otherwise?
So when it comes to actually being a politician, I don't really have any interest. I think it's kind of for similar reasons, but for the opposite of what Emma was saying. I feel like I'm a little too confrontational, and the voters not like me for being a little too confrontational there. But I think it would be fun to work behind the scenes. I have heard that campaign work. I've done a little campaign work, and it's a little bit too grueling for me. But my degree is in data science and statistics, so I've been interested in the polling side. So definitely would like to see potentially a career in at a polling company and work on those stats and trying to make sure that we don't have issues like in 2016, 2020, where the polls were very far off, especially in Wisconsin, where there was one highly rated poll that said that Joe Biden was going to win by 17 points. And you're like, well, that clearly did not happen. So I'd love to fix that.
Very good. When Nate Silver retires, we'll expect to see you on 538. And it's too bad. I now realize Aaron doesn't have a TV. He just said he's not suitable for politics because he's too confrontational. So I'll just let that sit there for a while.
Say, Bob, can I jump in? I just have a nuts and bolts question. I'm just curious. I want to know how each of the contestants started their map. I heard some different suggestions watching the PMC meetings, but how do you get started? How did you get started this time? We can start backwards there with Aaron. How'd you start your map?
So the way that I like to start with my maps is actually using the current version of the map, especially because here in Wisconsin, we do things a little differently with our Senate districts. And although this is assembly, right, whatever the Senate districts are kind of defines what our assembly districts are. And so because we don't have any kind of reset for our Senate districts, but which are staggered, we only do all the odd number districts one year and the even number districts another year. There are concerns in terms of disenfranchisement because you don't want people who last voted in 2018 for their senator to then get redistricted to a district that's not going to be up till 2024, where they're waiting 6 years. So that does kind of put a constraint on how much the map can change. So I try to kind of use the current map, especially the current Senate map, to try to make sure that I'm not disenfranchising too many people when it comes to the new maps.
So did you actually construct a complete Senate map before you worked on the Assembly map?
Yes. And I don't remember, I think it's pretty recent, but DRA now has every state's maps that you can just maps into DRA and then start from there and adjust them based on population and municipalities and all that fun stuff.
Okay. Emma, how'd you get started?
I went the completely opposite route. I started with a clean map because I just didn't even know where to start when looking at all those colors. I was like, I just want to start from scratch. I was like, I just picked a spot on the map. I started in the bottom left corner of the state and just kind of went around it in kind of a zigzag and just worked kind of wherever, I tried to keep counties together. So like any counties that were like below, I think it was like 58,000 people or whatever that number was, I just automatically made them like one color and then worked from, but yeah, I just kind of started from scratch. And I'm somebody who I don't like to start something and not finish. So I did my entire map in one night. So yeah, that was an adventure, but yeah, so that's basically how I did mine. And I'll admit I did not even take Senate districts into account. I was strictly focusing on the Assembly.
Yeah. Okay, Teddy, how'd you
Yeah, I
get
started in
started?
a similar way too. I started at the north end of the state since those counties are less populated, so I thought it'd be easier to keep county splits low there. And then I just went north to south essentially and finished in Milwaukee and that area of the state.
Okay.
That's funny because I finished in Ashland.
The advice that I heard during one of the PMC testimony meetings was to start in corners, some corner, pick a corner, and go from there.
One thing I want to make sure we do, so we've got about 15 minutes. I do want to open it up so that if any of the winners has anything they do want to share with us, that hasn't come up in a question. So any topic at all, rather than put you on the spot, if anybody has something they'd like to say, just give me a thumbs up, wave your hand. But this is free for all, so any topic at all. Anybody have anything they want to share? Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, I was noticing on the scores that I think mine had an abnormally low county splitting score, which remembering my map, it actually makes a lot of sense because I tried to prioritize keeping the municipalities together. And as you probably know, in River Falls, as it borders the Pierce and St. Croix County border, I would rather keep River Falls together than to split it down the middle to keep the counties together. So there was I think that my county splitting was probably a lot lower because those kind of municipalities right on the border, I decided to just put in one district or another rather than have the county border split it, which is unfortunate for my score, but.
Unfortunate for your score, but it was what you had decided. If you could control things, you decided that was the more important. Emma, you go ahead.
So the part about River Falls kind of jogged my memory a little bit. Honestly, sometimes like when I get going on something, like I'm like fueled by something. And in this case, it was partially like petty anger because I remember for the election this year, we used to all like in the election, I couldn't vote for like back, in 2016. I remember hearing that from the seniors, all of them were able to vote in the UC on campus and like everyone was able to vote in the same spot. And then after 2016, or maybe it was 2010, I don't even know. They, because of gerrymandering, they split the campus down the middle. So freshmen and sophomores or who were in that like one side of the campus had to go vote at the high school. And then the rest of the campus got to vote at the UC. And I was like so angered by that. I'm like, no, we are keeping River Falls together. So I definitely did focus on that as well a little bit, trying not to split like right down the middle of something. Like I did split, I think, River Falls as a whole, but like as far as just a single like campus with a lot of people, I kept stuff like that together.
But you've lived this. You have personally experienced the pain of gerrymandering, right?
Yeah, I was like, are you kidding me? I'm like, so I did an absentee ballot. 'Cause I'm like, I'm not like driving all the way over there to vote, especially when like I have class that day and stuff like that too. So I'm like, I don't have time to go get all the way over there. So I was like, I'm just gonna do an absentee ballot because I'm registered to vote back home. So
Perfect.
Yeah, that's exactly why the community of interest initiative that was done this summer is important. Little things like that weren't picked up in the past. So we're hoping that that effort will produce some good results there.
Eddie, if you had something, you go ahead, please.
Yeah, so what I've noticed in drawing some maps, both in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, was that sometimes you need to sacrifice the compactness of a district to increase the partisan fairness. So my map in, I think it's La Crosse County, I drew a strange inlet into the town to get an extra Democratic district, and it's because Democrats usually live more in cities, Republicans more spread apart. It's just necessary to do that sometimes to get partisan fairness. So when they adopt maps, they'll have to prioritize whether they want more compactness or more fairness, but it's often difficult to get both.
can I add something to that?
Certainly.
That was one of the big problems I ran into too, because with one, not only Democrats tending to be in more of the urban like conglomerations, but also minorities tend to be in those urban areas. It was very hard to get minority representation and competitiveness equal, because in order to represent the minorities, you had to group them all together because they are a minority and you need to, you know, keep their numbers high by grouping them. Otherwise, you know, they're still going to be the minority. But then because of that, it's like, I think pretty much all those districts was very hard. And then all the rural areas were like very, very Republican and very little Democrat. So it was very hard, especially in Wisconsin, just because Milwaukee is so segregated and stuff like that. It was very hard to keep that competitiveness up while like helping out minority groups. So I think in other states it might have been a little bit easier.
All of us know the bumper sticker issues around the difficulty. You've worked through it and you've seen the exact, I mean the exact trade-offs that are made to try to represent different interests and support different initiatives. Don, did you have something?
Yeah, just going back to Aaron's comment about having to violate county splitting by keeping municipalities together, like River Falls. It's unfortunate that DRA doesn't have a city splitting score. They do help you out with the municipalities by providing outlines, but I think maybe in the future we will be able to expand that splitting category from just county splitting to municipality splitting. And I'm hoping that, say, take River Falls, for example, that when that happens, when a city has to be kept intact, but crosses over into another county, that won't be counted against county splitting at all. I think that could be easily programmed. I think district has a little bit of that evaluation, but something for the future that would help construct the maps.
While we're running a little bit short, we still have 10 minutes if we'd like. I'm going to share something. I'm going to share my screen again to tell you that despite the fact that I have just met Eddie and Emma and Aaron really 50 minutes ago, I feel a closeness to Aaron that I don't quite share with Teddy and Emma, and I'm going to show why. So I run a Twitter feed for for WWNVD, and when Aaron entered the map or entered the contest, He's calling all redistricting mappers. Pierce County, Wisconsin GRO is holding a contest to draw a fair map. I've submitted my first place, obviously. Well, as I run this Twitter feed under the name Elbridge Project, I couldn't help but notice this sounds like Larry Bird walking into the locker room in the NBA All-Star game for their three-point shooting contest and famously asking, so who's playing for second today? And if you really know that quote, you know that I might have cleaned it up a little bit for a family audience. But for that, Aaron, I really appreciate my feeling is if you're going to enter, you might as well enter loudly. Let's see, we have a message from Grace, who also works on our WWNVD video team. Congratulations to all the winners. I'm impressed, as we all are. If there's anyone else that has any questions or comments, this would be the time to share them. And if not, I'll close us out a little bit early. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate, in particular, our winners here on the panel, just being open and sharing their ideas. That was great of you. Janelle, thanks for your work in this. Don carrying the bulk of the load for this contest. Thank you for doing that.
Just one more comment. The checks aren't exactly in the mail, but they will be in the mail this week.
Thank you. Thank you guys
Thanks
for the
for
opportunity.
participating.
You are very welcome. All right. Thanks all. We'll say good night. Bye now.
Thanks.
Bye.
And Janelle, I'm going to end the meeting for all if that, unless that interferes with any of the behind the scenes steps. Okay, we'll talk to you soon.